Noswaith dda, we are back. Welcome back to another episode of the NFL Cymru podcast with myself, Dyfed Cynan Guto Williams. We are on day 4 of NFL free agency for 2025. We thought that we'd jump on at the end of the week to try and sum up what has been going on over the last couple of days, because it's been absolute chaos, as you can imagine. Fair play to Guto. Shout out to Guto. He's been very busy typing away, keeping us all informed on the Instagram page. Guto, I can imagine it's been really, really difficult for you to juggle, everything that you've got on your day job as well, and things kicking off in the NFL as well. So
Yeah, it didn't help that I had a work event this week as well, but luckily during that time everything big had already happened. So
yeah.
they call it free agency frenzy for a reason. I believe it was Tuesday night. Everything just came all at once. Came home from work, got my computer set up, tried to get as much information as I can, as much posts as I possibly could. It's been difficult to catch up on everything. I think we've covered what we can. So if you guys check out our Instagram at NFL Cymru Pod, same on Twitter /X, NFL Cymru Pod, all the information you need is on there. So yeah, it's like I said, they call it free agency frenzy for a reason. It's been absolutely crazy this week.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to a section at the end of this pod where we're going to be ranking, or we're going to be coming up with some of the winners and the losers of this week during NFL free agency. If you want to chime in, by the way, give us a comment. If you're, I don't know, an Eagles fan, you're kind of maybe a little bit betwixt about what on earth is going on over there after winning a Super Bowl and seemingly getting rid of half of your defense, or if you're maybe a Seattle fan out there and thinking, what on earth is going on? We've just released 2 of our best wide receivers. Just give us a shout. Leave us a comment to see what you think, or maybe who are the winners and the losers of this year's free agency. Like I said, we'll get to that very, very shortly. However, Guto, shall we start with some of the most significant moves that entails a quarterback that's happened in the last couple of days?
Yeah, let's start off with which I believe is the biggest move so far this free agency. The biggest surprise as well. I don't think anybody expected this move to happen. Geno Smith has gone to the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know about you, Dyfed, but when I first read that, I thought I was being hacked. I thought it was fake, but Geno Smith has gone to the Raiders. So, and in return, to the Seattle Seahawks, they've gone for a $100 million contract to last year's breakout quarterback Sam Darnold. Absolutely crazy.
Personally, if I'm a Raiders fan, I don't see what the attraction is with Geno Smith, if I'm honest with you.
He's not. It's yeah. All the names are on the free agency list. We'll mention another quarterback just in a few moments. But it's Geno Smith. He's a decent enough quarterback. He's not obviously top 10. He's not he's not up there as one of the best. Obviously reuniting with the head coach now of the Las Vegas Raiders. Excuse me, I forgot the name, but
Pete Carroll, yeah.
Pete Carroll, yes. So a little reuniting there. Maybe Tom Brady sees something in Geno Smith. He believes that Geno Smith can be the quarterback for the next few years for the Raiders. Who knows? But the Seattle Seahawks, they've got a steal in Sam Darnold. I think it may be that it's a one season wonder. Who knows? But a $100 million contract for 3 years for Sam Darnold. Absolutely berserk.
The boy got paid.
Yeah.
He got paid.
Wow. Yeah.
2 things on that, Guto, before we move on. We're still, everyone around the NFL are still kind of like waiting for the big domino to fall. That is, apparently Aaron Rodgers is the big domino. If you call a 40-year-old quarterback a big domino, I'm not sure about that. But I think it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of unclear what's going on with him. I mean, there's talk of retirement, but there's also talk of him maybe staying in New York, but going to the Giants. He's had some meetings with the Browns as well. Again, if I was the Cleveland Browns, would you really want to kind of put your franchise on the shoulders of a 40-year-old quarterback? Like I said, maybe it's just for a year and kind of, because I think a lot of the Raiders and the Browns have an opportunity to draft a quarterback as well. That was the other thing that I was going to say. The Browns have signed Kenny Pickett, a former first round pick of the Steelers a couple of years ago before they moved on from him. Back to the Rangers, just quickly. Do you think? Well, I think perhaps that this Geno Smith move is going to be a tie-over because potentially the Raiders at number 6 in the draft might draft a quarterback. Will sit behind Geno potentially for this year at least, and see will it be a Shedeur Sanders for example, who apparently is falling potentially out of the top 10 in the draft. I think I said that last week. What do you think it does? Do you reckon Las Vegas are really? Do you really think that they see Geno Smith as a long-term prospect?
Yes, it's a difficult one. Maybe a season or two, but like you said, they are number 6 in the draft this year. It could be a similar situation to when the Atlanta Falcons drafted Michael Penix Jr. just a few weeks after we gave a bumper of a contract to Kirk Cousins, which has not really worked out, and he's a question as well if he's leaving or going. Who knows? So yeah, the Geno Smith move to the Raiders, it's an interesting one. So we could see Sanders getting drafted and sitting behind him, but I don't know. I believe Sanders' ego, he wants to be QB1, but you've got teams up there as well. So it's good. One team that I haven't seen making any moves in quarterback position as of yet is the Tennessee Titans, who are number 1 in the draft. So I think their vision is clear. They're going to draft, for me anyway, they're going to draft a quarterback. Maybe, I believe Cam Ward is up there. So, and then you've got the Giants as well. But obviously there's a question of Aaron Rodgers or not. So, but it's interesting to see what's going to happen. But with me, going back to Geno Smith, I believe he's around his 30s, I think, or just before his 30s. So, he could be like Tom Brady must see something in him. Well, he's one of the top quarterbacks. So, yeah, it'll be interesting one. I believe he'll be there for the next couple of seasons. But seeing that move, it baffled me a little bit, seeing how they ended up thinking Geno Smith, he's our guy.
Yeah, just the other thing about Geno Smith and the Raiders as well is who is he going to be throwing to?
Exactly.
Because Geno is coming from Seattle, where we'll get to Seattle very shortly, where for the last couple of seasons he's been throwing to Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, amongst many other wide receivers or tight ends and stuff. And then he's going to the Raiders, who, well, they clearly don't have a number 1 wide receiver unless they think Kendrick Bourne is a number 1 wide receiver, which I don't think he is. They've got an outstanding tight end in Brock Bowers. He is a dual threat. He is he was, I think he was Rookie of the Year, wasn't he, last year? He was absolutely fantastic, a Pro Bowler in his first season. They have another tight end in Michael Mayer that is, well, maybe more of a blocking tight end. So they're short of weapons in Las Vegas at the moment, and like you said, they'll probably target some more in the draft, or there's a few wide receivers not as exciting as maybe the top 5 guys that we've seen go off the market now. Like I said, we'll get the quarterbacks over with, and then we'll delve into some more wide receivers moves very, very shortly. Justin Fields is another one. He's the other starter, I believe. And then we've had some backup QBs switching teams as well. So Justin Fields, I guess, is going to be the starter for the New York Jets. Yeah. Again, I didn't see that happening. As a Dolphins fan, do I fear Justin Fields. I don't fear him as a passer. I fear him as a runner, 100%, because I've seen when he was with Chicago what devastation he can create. But yeah, I don't know what to think about that move, to be honest, Guto.
Me personally, I've always been a fan of Justin Fields. I just think he just needed to find the right environment for him. So, and he's reuniting now with Garrett Wilson, who was his partner when they were both at college together. So, I believe he's found his right place. It didn't work out for him in Chicago when he was drafted. Obviously, there was a back and forth thing with Russell Wilson. Obviously, Russell Wilson being more of a veteran in the game. Justin Fields, he's about 23, 24, I believe. So, but I think I see Justin Fields maturing when he was at the Steelers. He played the first 6 games. He was 4-2. He was all over us against the Falcons in that opening game last season. So, and I don't know. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Justin Fields, and I'm actually quite happy to see him. I'm hoping it's going to work out for him, me personally. And like you said, his passing, it could improve 100%, but he's a really great runner of the ball. So I think the Jets have made great business with this one. And like I mentioned, reuniting him with Garrett Wilson, their wide receiver, both playing together in the same team at college. So I think, the Jets could be the team to look at next season, just them two alone. So, but yeah, and then you mentioned a couple of backup quarterbacks moving. So you got Daniel Jones, formerly of the New York Giants. He's gone to the Indianapolis Colts. So there'll be a bit of competition there between Daniel Jones and, the QB1 of last season, Tyler Richardson. So two young quarterbacks fighting for the number 1 spot, and another two. Mac Jones has gone to the 49ers. I think that's an interesting move. And finally, Mason Rudolph has returned to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's interesting with the Steelers. Are they going to stick with Russell Wilson? Will he move away? Is Mason Rudolph part of their plan? What do you think, David?
I think Russ is their backup plan. We were just talking before we recorded on the pod that there are kind of rumours out there that potentially Aaron Rodgers might be kind of, a name to look out for with the Steelers. I don't see that personally. I don't see the Steelers going for that.
No, my dad is crossing his fingers that doesn't happen.
Of course, because Gitto's dad is an avid Steelers fan and been the Steelers fan since the 80s, since the 70s.
Yeah, 80s. Yeah. That's
Gosh.
Sports,
so he's seen he's seen a few championships along the way, and he's seen a few decent quarterbacks going back to I think about Ben Roethlisberger, that decade he had winning 2 Super Bowls. I personally think Russ will probably be back with the Steelers, maybe on another 1-year deal. I don't see Rodgers going there. And the Steelers have been making some solid moves. We're going to talk about a big wide receiver that's crossed from the NFC side very, very shortly. Another backup job. Gardner Minshew is the new backup quarterback in Kansas City, by the way. He's going to be backing up Patrick Mahomes for 2025. Just quickly before we move on, back to Daniel Jones and the situation in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson. He, as an athlete, he's probably one of the best athletes out there in terms of he can run the ball. He's got a cannon of an arm. He's been struggling a lot with inconsistencies in his game, and he's been benched a few times, if I remember correctly, especially last year. And he's been putting himself into really difficult spots with injuries as well. He's maybe been he had a little bit of I think he was just trying to prove himself a little bit too much, maybe trying to, put on a cape like Josh Allen used to do, kind of like hurl himself into the air to try and get a first down and injure himself in the process. So that's going to be a really, really interesting QB battle over the summer because, like you said, Daniel Jones, he got the contract from the Giants. they're going to eat that a lot of cap because he's been released. Whether you think Daniel Jones is a starting quarterback in the NFL, that'll probably split opinion, especially with Giants fans, I can imagine. But yeah, I can definitely see Daniel Jones. There's a world I can see where Daniel Jones beats out Anthony Richardson over the summer. So yeah, that's something to look out for. Right, so there are the major QB moves. Guto, shall we move on to some wide receiver
Yeah.
contracts and moves?
Let's start off with Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams, formerly of the Patriots, formerly of the Jets, formerly of the Raiders as well, before going to New York Jets for a couple of months to team up with Aaron Rodgers. Didn't work out. He got released. He has signed, I believe, a $45 million contract for 3 years with the LA Rams. I was so excited to watch a wide receiver room of Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp. I think that wide receiver room, three wide receiver, would be the best 3 wide receivers in the league. But unfortunately, David, Cooper Kupp has been released.
Yeah, we kind of all knew that the writing was on the wall. The Rams put out a statement. They're kind of like farewell to Cooper Kupp. So Cooper Kupp is out there. He has, like I said, they tried to trade him. They weren't able to get what they wanted. It'll be interesting to see actually what was the asking price for Cooper Kupp. I couldn't imagine that it would be more than a 3rd round pick if they'd be able to get a 3rd for Cooper Kupp. I'm not quite sure. If you think about it, I think Debo went for a 3rd, didn't he, or maybe a 4th to the Commanders.
I believe so.
So I should imagine that Cooper Kupp would, and you have to think about his age. He's been injury riddled over the last couple of seasons as well. So probably a 4th at a max, I reckon, for Cooper Kupp. Today, it's emerged that maybe the Dallas Cowboys are the front runners to sign Cooper Kupp. We're gonna look out for that and see kind of what comes from that in the next couple of hours or in the next couple of days. Who knows if it'll break in the next half an hour whilst we're recording a pod. So yeah, Devontae Adams going to the Rams. So you've got Puka Nacua, a former Rookie of the Year. Dealt with some injuries last year. Devontae Adams showed that he's still got, plenty left in the tank, as you say, as a member of the Jets. Last season, they've got a really, really good running back in Kyron Williams. Matthew Stafford is coming back. They've got Tyler Higbee as their tight end as well. So yeah, they've got a young, exciting room. Apart from Adams, obviously he's a veteran. I think he's 32, 33. So that's going to bring a different dynamic. And the Rams, I guess, are, going to just have to deal with life post Cooper Kupp. And they've been transitioning over the last couple of seasons anyway. Another big move, probably one of the biggest moves that I didn't see happening. First of all, Seattle decided that they were going to blow everything up. They released Tyler Lockett, and then they traded DK Metcalf. And DK has signed a ridiculous contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, he has. This one, it's a complete reset from what it looks like what's going on at the Seattle Seahawks. Definitely a different team to who I witnessed when they beat the Atlanta Falcons when I was at the game. It's going to be a completely different team. They tried to make the big push towards the playoff towards the end, but they failed, unfortunately. In fact, I can confirm to you that they are number 18th in the draft. They did finish the season 10-7, so they did have a winning season. They just didn't make the wild card. So, but they have downgraded massively. Quarterback wise, they've got Sam Darnold. Hope that works well for him. Breakout season last season. But DK Metcalf was an interesting move, and he's gone to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So whoever the quarterback is at the Steelers towards at the start of the season, they've got a good player to throw a ball at.
We're talking about another athletically gifted freak of an athlete here in DK Metcalf. He's quick, he's strong, he's tall, he can... I can remember the video, Guto, you probably know the one where Russell Wilson, when he played for the Seahawks, throws an interception in the red zone. It was Buda Baker of the Arizona Cardinals, takes it the other way. DK Metcalf is in the end zone at this point and absolutely sprints after Buda Baker and runs him down at the 5-yard line. I'm sure he's probably 16, 17 stone. He catches, he can catch the deep ball. He's got the, quarterbacks can throw it up to them as a contested catch as well. He's just an absolute beast. He was looking for a new contract. With the Seattle, obviously, like you said, were just unwilling to pay him. They released Tyler Lockett as well, so Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be their number one going forward, and I should think that they'll address that in the draft, perhaps. But then, like you said, whoever's going to be the QB in Pittsburgh Steelers is now going to have a dual threat: DK on one half, and then they're going to have George Pickens on the other. Again, a similar player to DK, not maybe as giftedly talent physically as DK, but two really, really exciting wide receivers. So, in the AFC North, you're going to have Jamar Chase and potentially T. Higgins. You're going to have, and now you're going to have this new dual threat in Pittsburgh with DK and George Pickens. So the AFC North is absolutely stacked at the moment.
Yeah, and going back to George Pickens, he's still young. He's 24 years of age, so he's going to learn a lot from DK Metcalf. He's only 27, 28. He's probably in his prime now, and he's joining a really top team and potentially the WR1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, definitely that division, they've been put on notice for the Steelers. But with the Steelers, we say that every year. They make the playoffs, they don't win their first game. So, they're going to have to go a different way. So, getting DK Metcalf in their team is a big upgrade for their wide receiver room, 100%. And I hope, as long as they all stay fit, as long as they're all healthy, no major injuries, I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah. I think those are the big moves. I know we've mentioned Debo going to the Commanders as well. That was probably one of the first transitions that happened early this week. A team that I'm surprised that haven't targeted a wide receiver so far, Guto, are the New England Patriots. They've signed pretty much everyone else in the NFL, but they haven't signed a wide receiver, which they badly needed. They've definitely added to their armour on defence. They've signed Milton Williams, the defensive tackle, one of the stars of the Super Bowl a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago by now. Yes, we're in March now. From the Eagles. They've signed a lot of really, really talented players. Harold Landry is another one from Tennessee. They've signed, but they just haven't they haven't really come to look at the offensive side of the ball yet. They might be going that way in the draft. We don't know, but and they've got a defensive minded coach coming in Vrabel. Their defense was, they had really, really good pieces on defense. Anyway, they had Christian Gonzalez, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. And they're gonna, their defense is gonna be scary in the next couple of seasons. It's just, we're just gonna have to wait and see to see what the Patriots do on the offensive side of the ball. Just before we move on, Guto, and talk about Myles Garrett. It's worth mentioning that some breaking news happened just before we pressed record here, 20 minutes ago, with the Bengals. Apparently, they're trying to proceed with contract negotiations with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Yeah, so from what we have been told, from what we're reading here, they're making great progress in the contract talks with their wide receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So Yeah, that's a really good wide receiver room for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they will do absolutely anything to keep them to, and it would be a massive loss if either one of them ends up leaving the Bengals. So, yeah, but apparently talks are going really well. It looks like, as of now, I won't be surprised at this point in time if they both end up still staying at the Bengals for a number more seasons.
I just don't think, I just can't really understand how they're going to do this, how they're going to they're going to be able to manipulate the cap space to do this, because as well you have to remember they've got a top three paid or top five um, QB contract with Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase is definitely going to be the highest paid wide receiver in the league, and T Higgins is cap hit if he's going to play on the franchise tag is going to be over 20 million as well. The Bengals, on the offensive side of the ball, that's not been their problem. They've re-signed Mike Gesicki, their tight end, another one, the former Dolphin. Their problem has been on the defensive side of the ball, and I thought that they'd target that area. Another area that they needed to strengthen as well was their offensive line. They haven't done that either. So I'm not sure if this is the best approach for them to tie themselves to ultimately three superstars. But surely, don't you think, if 3 stars, if you're going to pay 3 stars top money in the NFL, are you going to kind of you're going to shoot yourselves in the foot, and you're just going to you're gonna be stuck from being able to pay if you wanted to target a defensive lineman or a linebacker or something or a cornerback. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's a very good. It's a very good point. It's a very good point indeed. Obviously, two brilliant wide receivers, but it was their defense that let them down last season because there were so many games last season where you're talking games that had more than 30 points each team. Offensively, they can score a touchdown in every drive, but they can also concede in every drive as well. So that's why most of their losses come in high scoring games where they should have put it to bed, really. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. They actually lost 5 in a row last season as well. And
Yeah.
most of those games were high scoring games where they could have just put it to bed. So, but they're number 17 in the draft. There's a few teams above them, us including the Atlanta Falcons. They were looking for, the defensive players. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see where they go. There's obviously a few talent left out there that they could potentially snap up if the deals with the two wide receivers doesn't go well. So, but I think, as you mentioned, it's a good point. They might have to put their priorities elsewhere, and especially at their defensive side as well.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Was I just don't see how they can do this without literally handcuffing themselves to
Yeah.
these three players. And yeah, maybe it is that T Higgins just plays on the franchise tag as well, whether he's willing to do that or he wants to be paid as a number one wide receiver, which he definitely deserves to be paid as one, because he's been absolutely phenomenal over the last couple of years since he was drafted. So before we finish with our biggest winners and losers of this year's free agency, should we talk about probably one of the most bizarre pieces of news that happened a couple of days ago now? It really kind of, the breaking news just before the Super Bowl was when we saw a tweet by Myles Garrett himself saying that that he officially asked the Cleveland Browns for a trade request, and that he wanted to pursue another team. He wanted to join another team that were contending for a Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden we hear that, people at teams are clearing cap space, preparing to make a move for Myles Garrett. I heard that maybe that the Eagles were potentially one of those teams. And then we heard all of a sudden in the midst of free agency that he's re-signed with the Browns. He is the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Completely deserves to be that, to have that accolade. But how on earth did this happen, Guto?
Yeah, what a turn of events, honestly. Started off with a tweet saying he wants to compete, he wants to join a top team. He's a top talent, so he should be. He's a player that should be competing for a Super Bowl 100%. He even there was talks that he was ready to sit out games and not turn up to training just so he can force a trade. We mentioned that in our last episode, I believe, and then as soon as we finished the podcast, a couple of days later, he signed a $40 million contract with the Cleveland Browns, the team that he made public that he wanted to leave. So it's bizarre, honestly. He's
Gito, maybe you've got to kind of ask the question, either what has he been promised, or maybe what Andrew Berry, the GM, has kind of sold to him, because I just don't see how Cleveland can turn around within the next couple of years unless they draft someone like Cam Ward with the second overall pick in this year's draft. Yeah. That's the only quick turnaround that I can see. But still, I just don't see how Cleveland can sell to Myles Garrett that they were going to be one of the teams in the AFC, not even within their own division, that's going to be competing on a realistic level for a Super Bowl in the next 5 years.
I agree, 100% agree. It even took the managers and the owners. There was talks that they were having difficulties getting hold of Myles Garrett to try and talk of a new contract, as he just wanted to trade. He wasn't prepared to talk unless it was about a trade. So yeah, but they're number 2 in the draft. They do need a new quarterback, so it could be that they'll be shopping for a new quarterback, or even drafting Cam Ward, like you mentioned. He's one of the top names in the draft board, I believe. So unless Tennessee picks him at number 1, so but it will be interesting. It's mind-boggling that he's ended up signing a massive contract with them. It might be that obviously money talks. Obviously, he's now the highest paid in his position in the league. So yeah, it's mind-boggling. It's confusing to everyone as well, isn't it?
Yeah. It does baffle me. I saw a tweet from one of the NFL insiders. I think it was Ian Rappaport or Schefter. I'm not quite sure. And he said that Myles Garrett's comments about re-signing with the Cleveland Browns. He said apparently it was never about money. It was always about competing.
Yeah.
And that still doesn't solve the puzzle to me, really. Like I said. How has he been sold that the Cleveland Browns are going to be able to compete within the next, not even 2 or 3 years? They've still got this ongoing dilemma with the Deshaun Watson contract. He won't be playing this year because he's re-aggravated. He tore his Achilles once again. So he's going to be out. They renegotiated his contract to clear a lot of cap space. I think that opened up maybe 20 or 30 million for them to potentially go out and pay someone like Myles Garrett. But they definitely need some weapons on offense. Some of the O linemen are aging. They've got, I think, ultimately their trade for Jerry Jeudy is potentially going to pan out. I know they've got Elijah Moore as one of their other wide receivers. They traded Amari Cooper to the Bills during the 2024 season. So again, unless you have Cam Ward, and obviously they've got Nick Chubb, but is he going to be ever going to be the Nick Chubb of old after such a devastating injury? I don't know. So a lot of question marks around the Cleveland Browns going on. So there we are, Gito. Should we finish off this pod with our biggest winners and losers during, like you said, the free agency frenzy, as you call it?
Yeah. I'm going to start off with who I think is one of the big winners, a team that we haven't mentioned in this podcast as of yet, and it's important that we mention this team. They've done really well so far. The Chicago Bears, I've put as the top one. So they've signed Scott great. They've taken 2 players from the Atlanta Falcons. First of all, we've given Grady Jarrett, who was a defensive tackle for us. I'm very gutted that he's left, and Drew Dalman, our corner as well. So that's 2 great big players that the Falcons have lost, and they've gone over to the Chicago Bears. And another one is Scott Daly as well. And another one, I believe. No, that's it. So I think it's important to note that Chicago Bears have done really well in this off-season, in the free agency. It's extra protection as well for Caleb Williams, their quarterback. So I think, they'll be a team to watch next season, definitely.
The obvious winner, I think we've already mentioned them, are the New England Patriots. Obviously, they've gone absolutely mental. I think they've spent over 100 million. They had 120 million in cap space. Like I said, they've loaded it with their defense with Harold Landry, the linebacker, like we said, Milton Williams from the defensive lineman. But the team, I think, one of the biggest winners, again, we haven't mentioned so far, are the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, they were going to be next on my list, actually. I've got them on my list.
So,
yeah.
I was very excited to hear that apparently the Dolphins were in for Joey Bosa. It was either going to be between the Dolphins and the Niners, because they were going to reunite the Bosa brothers, Nick and Joey, up in San Francisco. And then all of a sudden, the Bills came out of nowhere and swept him aside and took him to New York, to the state of New York, up in Buffalo. They've signed him to a 1-year contract, so they've signed Joey Bosa. They've signed Larry Ogunjobi from the Steelers. He's a really good defensive tackle. A new wide receiver in Josh Palmer from the LA Chargers. He's a good piece, along with Amari Cooper hasn't been re-signed, by the way, but another their wide receiver one that they signed just before free agency is Khalil Shakir. So the Bills managed to get to the AFC Championship without a number 1 wide receiver, or I guess Shakir is going to be their number 1, and they have Cooper as well. But now they're going to have Josh Palmer as well, and they've re-signed a lot of their defensive players as well. The Bills are going to be a problem. They released Von Miller as well. That's another thing that they've done, and they replaced him with Joey Bosa. They extended Greg Rousseau, another defensive lineman. They've got CJ Epinesa as well, who's another really good player. Matt Milano. They've got so many good players. So the Bills are going to be a problem, Guto. Not sure to say that I'm overexcited about it as a Dolphins fan, but I had to give them a shout out. I think they've upgraded their roster massively.
Yeah, I agree. They were second on my list. I wanted to give Chicago Bears their flowers, but yeah, the Buffalo Bills, definitely they've improved, and they're going to be a problem every year. Josh Allen as well. I don't know if you mentioned, he's signed a new contract. He's now, I believe, a top 3 highest paid quarterback in the league. So there we are. Let's go to the biggest losers, and apart from the player that we mentioned earlier, I don't think this team has done anything apart from letting players go. The San Francisco 49ers. That, to me, they're the biggest losers as of now, so far. Not that the Dallas Cowboys have done much either, but San Francisco 49ers, okay, they've signed Mac Jones as a QB2. Another player that they might have signed, DeMarcus Robinson, a wide receiver, is a $6 million guaranteed contract. So, but they've let players go. There's questions about, obviously, George Kittle. They've gotten rid of Deebo Samuels, and they haven't upgraded their squad at all, really. So, to me, the 49ers are the biggest losers.
Yeah. And obviously they're going to have to pay their quarterback as well, Brock Purdy. So that's kind of, again, that's limiting their options probably, because he's probably going to be a top 5 paid quarterback in the league very, very shortly, whether they decide to pay him now or closer to training camp in the summer, maybe after the draft. The only thing that I will say about the 49ers is they do tend to draft very, very well. I know they've lost a lot of their defensive players as well. Drake Kinlaw, he's gone as well. Their safety, Talua Hufanga, he's another one. He's gone. So yeah, they've got a lot of holes to fill. One of my biggest losers, Guto, apart from the Seattle Seahawks, I'm going to go with the Houston Texans.
They've been very quiet, haven't they? They've been really, really quiet.
Yeah, they've done a lot of trades. They've traded probably one of their best offensive linemen in Laramie Tunsil to the Washington Commanders, who are making massive, massive moves. That's another big honorably mentioned, should we say, the Washington Commanders. They're doing really, really savvy moves. They've got now one of the best left tackles in the game in Laramie Tunsil, former Dolphin. He was traded to the Houston Texans a couple of years ago. He's a multi-Pro Bowler, and they've lost a lot of their offense on their offensive line. They haven't addressed the wide receiver room because Tank Dell obviously is dealing with a long-term injury. I haven't heard that they, apart from the only notable addition on the defensive side of the ball for the Texans, and I think it is a good signing, I have to give them this, is they have signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, the safety from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's coming off a Super Bowl win. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, sorry. He's a really, really good player. I do really, really rate him. But apart from that, I've seen a lot of, like I said, NFL insiders wondering what on earth is going on with the Texans, really, because, like you said, you know, they've been to they've reached the divisional round for 2 years in a row. And you think that they've been building to win the division again and potentially compete for the AFC Championship. But I definitely think that they've taken a step back over the last couple of weeks. So that's, the Texans are my losers so far.
They've been very quiet apart from the players that you mentioned. So, but like you said, they have taken a step back, which is a shame really, because they're a very exciting team. I think they're one of my favorite teams to watch. So, hopefully they'll improve. Hopefully they'll do a bit more shopping and that. So, but I won't be surprised if they're still competing for the playoff spot next season. Should we talk about our teams, Dyfed? Let's start off with the Miami Dolphins. What do you make of your free agency so far?
I'm going to throw that back to you. Do you want to talk about your Atlanta Falcons first? Because, to be honest with you, I don't have much to talk about the Dolphins, but I'll be back very, very shortly.
I don't have a lot to talk about during the Falcons either. Let's be completely honest. We've lost our great players, but in return, we've signed Devine Diablo, which I think is a very, very cool name, a left back from the Las Vegas Raiders. We've signed Mike Hughes for a $18 million contract. We've gone for Leonard Floyd as well. But that's all the Falcons have done, unfortunately. So let's talk about the Miami Dolphins. We're going to play a bit of tennis here. If he wants to throw it at me, I'm going to throw it back at him. So the Miami Dolphins, they've not done as much, just as Dyfed did mention. They've signed left back Tyrell Dotson and a wide receiver, Nick Westbrook-Ikine, I believe that's how you say it. It's a small $3.2 million contract for him. They've signed a safety as well in Melifonwu, and they've signed O-line James Daniels, but they do have a new quarterback. I'm not sure if they will be competing with Tua Tagovailoa, but they've signed quarterback Zach Wilson in a 1-year, $6 million contract. So, free agency is still going. We're still waiting on news regarding Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, where they're going to end up going, Who knows? But free agency frenzy, this is why they call it for a reason. Just before we end the episode, I want to give my flowers to our good friend. He was a guest on our podcast a few weeks ago. His name is Cynan Anwyl, and he has started his own podcast. Cynan Anwyl is a member of the Bangor Mud Dogs team. If you guys watched our previous episode, we were just talking about Cynan Anwyl and his new podcast. It's a all Welsh NFL/American football podcast. To translate, the name is Does the Helmet Fit? Ydy'r helmet yn ffitio. I will put a link in our description on this video. So, Cynan, if you're watching, all the best on your new podcast. We've watched the first episode. You've done really, really well, and we will definitely be looking out for more. So, well done, and good luck to you on that one.
Yeah, it's really cool that he's actually done a Welsh language podcast as well. And I think I think we're all kind of like joined in the NFL community here in Wales, just trying to promote the NFL within Wales, trying, like we said, when we had Cynan on a couple of weeks ago, just to kind of, just to talk about Zamet's effect on the game here, especially over in the UK and especially here in Wales as well. And, you know, maybe we're kind of like dreaming at the moment that one day we will finally host a game here in Cardiff in the Principality Stadium. There's a massive game going on tomorrow. I'm not sure if you'll be watching. Wales are playing England in the Principality, if you're rugby fans out there. Do you know what? Apologies. Sorry for that, Guto. Well done, by the way, for covering for me. Thank you very much. It's my son's birthday party tomorrow, so I've had most of Tesco delivered to me this evening. But anyway, you've talked about the Falcons. Let me just go back and talk about the Dolphins quickly before we leave you this evening. Not much to say, if I'm honest with you. We're in cap hell at the moment, as we call it in Dolphins land. We've shot ourselves in the foot because we, over the last couple of years, we have been signing especially over last off season, we paid, or we extended a lot of people. So we paid Jalen Waddle. We gave him a 3-year contract. Obviously, we gave Tua Tagovailoa, our quarterback, a long-term contract. We extended Tyreek Hill, and we gave him a price bump, and we gave Jalen Ramsey, our cornerback, a price bump as well. So the majority of the cap was spent last off-season. We knew that basically we were going to put everything on a credit card, and it was going to be passed on to this off-season as well. This is how the Dolphins have decided to do business. Not my motto, if I'm honest with you. I would have liked to see our team grow younger. But that's all we've done, Guto, basically, is add journeyman, 1-year deals, void years at the end of contracts. The only one, I've got 2 that I'm excited about. I know that we're going to target a lot of players in the draft that will come up very, very shortly because, like I said, we need to get younger. 2 players that I've noted for the Dolphins. They finally got, hopefully, a really solid guard in James Daniels from the Pittsburgh Steelers. We badly needed guards because our 2 guards were absolute trash. The second one of note, which I didn't see coming, by the way, which kind of excites me. We signed former Titans wide receiver Nick Westbrook-Akine. He is a little bit of a different wide receiver. Basically, that's what we need. We've got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, who are speedsters, not very tall, aren't really able to kind of contest in the air against, upper echelon cornerbacks. Nick Westbrook-Akine can do that. He's 6'2", but he can also stretch the field as well. He scored 9 touchdowns for the Titans last year. So as a wide receiver 3, I'm very, very happy with that. And I'm sure we'll add another wide receiver in the draft. So there we are. That's kind of all that's been going on with the Dolphins. We still haven't addressed the defensive line. We still haven't addressed who's going to play opposite Jalen Ramsey in the cornerback's position. So a lot of work to do, basically, Guto.
Yeah, A question I've got for you, David. Another player that you've signed I want to bring up. Obviously, the quarterback situation with Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, he has an issue. He's had some issues with concussions in the past. So every time you see him running the ball, the Miami fans do get nervous, which rightly so. And I hope he's over it, but I don't think that's something that he can just get over. If potentially Tua gets injured somehow again next season, because he misses games every season, it looks like. Do you think Zach Wilson, you've signed him on a 1 year, $6 million contract? Would you be confident enough that he can kind of push the team? Obviously, he's not a top star. He was a third pick quarterback for the Broncos last season, and he's been released. So that's your QB2 now. How do you feel about that?
Annoyed, if I'm honest with you. We talked all at the end of the 2024 season about the massive mistake that the Dolphins did last off-season over the summer, where they stuck with Mike White and Skylar Thompson, a seventh round pick in the draft 2 years ago. They thought that the problem with the Dolphins, they were so naive because Tua happened to play a full season 2 years ago. They thought, he's over his concussion problems. You know, he's learned to do jiu-jitsu, so he knows how to fall properly now. He's not going to injure himself. He played 17 games. Fantastic. We're fine with Mike White and Skylar Thompson. That blew up in their faces. Tua got hurt in the second game of the season. He missed half the season then. And then the QB carousel was absolutely ridiculous. So we, in Dolphins land, talked all last year about we need to get a veteran guitar. We wanted to target someone like Andy Dalton of the Carolina Panthers, Joe Flacco, who, to be honest with you, has played brilliantly as a QB, as a backup, and as a starter wherever he has been. He did brilliantly. He took the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs. He played very, very well for the Colts last season. I thought we would definitely target even Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not a massive Jimmy Garoppolo fan, but he's re-signed with the Rams anyway. It pains me that we have signed an unproved quarterback who had an absolutely demoralising time after being picked very, very early on with the New York Jets. Like you said, he spent last season in Denver. He's played in the same system with the Jets. However, the only reason that I can think of that why we've targeted someone like Zach Wilson is there are talks that this potentially might be our GM, Chris Greer, and our head coach Mike McDaniel's last season in Miami. If we don't get to the playoffs, and even if we don't even win a playoff game, they're going to be fired. So I think Mike McDaniel is probably thinking, I'm on my last legs here as a head coach. If I potentially have the opportunity to turn around not only Tua's career, but potentially resurrect someone like Zach Wilson's career, because like you said, probably he will start again for the Dolphins next season. That's probably gonna, Mike McDaniel is going to come out of this situation a little bit better, and he's going to be perceived as a quarterback whisperer, maybe like that. So maybe he will have another head coaching job potentially in the long term. That's the only reasoning that I can see, because I wouldn't be happy turning to Zach Wilson. He's, like I said, he's unproven. He's very erratic, I feel, although he does have a very talented arm. I think he's got a big arm, very, very different to Tua, who is all about consistency, accuracy, timing. So yeah, guitar. I'm not thrilled, put it that way.
Yeah. No, it's not been a great situation here for the Miami Dolphins. Number 13 in the draft, just two higher than us, the Falcons, one and the Dallas Cowboys and San Francisco 49ers. Ended the season 8-9. So, who was your quarterback replacement for Tua last season? I didn't get the name.
Gosh, Do you want the list? Goodness me! So we had
Yeah,
Skylar started off with Skylar Thompson.
yeah,
Mike White got sent to the Buffalo Bills, so he was their backup last season. Skylar Thompson started. He was concussed and he broke a rib in the Seahawks game, which was the third game of the season. Then we signed. Oh gosh, who was it? He was absolutely terrible. He was a former Jets QB. His name escapes me right now. And then we signed Snoop Huntley off the Cleveland Browns roster, and he played 4 games for us, I believe. Tua came back, and then he got re-injured again against Houston, and he finished the season on IR. And Snoop Huntley was our QB for the last 3 games of the season. Again, he was brought into the Dolphins, and he was literally thrusted into the starting lineup after only had 3 practices. That didn't end up well. He was a little bit better towards the end of the season, but yeah, it was just an absolute catastrophic error by the Dolphins GM and head coach, and something clearly that they haven't addressed this season so far either. So yeah, not thrilled, Guitar, not at all.
no, no. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what direction they go in during the off season and during the draft as well. I'm quite fond of Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel as a head coach. I'm not sure what your stance on him is, especially over the last few seasons. But
Yeah.
obviously he's very charismatic, and I like his play style sometimes as well. But like you said, it just all depends on the fitness of your players. Obviously, you got Tyreek Hill as your wide receiver as well, and you've got a few options in the draft as well. So it's going to be interesting to see which direction the Miami Dolphins go. And I think, with the stance on their manager and head coach, it's a make or break season for the Miami Dolphins.
Yes, 100%. Ultimately, on Mike McDaniel, I'm a huge fan because he is very pro player.
Yeah.
However, some people have, players like Javon Holland, who has just left the Dolphins and he signed with the Giants. It seems to kind of have the same pattern seems to happen. A lot of the players or ex-Dolphin players have something to say about the culture in Miami, that it's too laid back because Mike McDaniel, like I said, is so charismatic as an individual. He gives apparently the team is run by the players instead of the head coach. He's not a hard-nosed head coach like, I don't know, Don Shula used to be, or maybe Bill Belichick or someone like that, who is also some players think that that a head coach should be feared, because ultimately you take that hard stance. But Mike McDaniel is the complete opposite. Like I said, ultimately I think he is an offensive genius with what he's done with Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. However, last season he came in, he brought a lot of criticism upon himself because he just couldn't really adapt. The lack of running game didn't help, and our lack of offensive power on the O-line as well. And, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were non-factors last year. So he needs to learn to adapt. And I hope he does this season. I like I said, the addition of Westbrook Akine to give us a different aspect. Adding Jonnu Smith has been brilliant as well. That has kind of taken a little bit of strain off Tyreek Hill's shoulders. Sorry if this has turned into a Dolphins podcast, by the way.
We have all night. We have all night.
Yeah, we do. We do. So yeah, like we said, best of luck to Kanan on his podcast. Do you have anything else to add, Guitar, before we end?
Yeah, I'm still waiting on anything massive to happen with the Atlanta Falcons, but it's kind of the same situation with the Dolphins. We're in cap hell as well. We're actually bottom 3 in the cap space, so it's not good. We've signed, I mentioned it as you went away, we've signed a couple of players Obviously, we've lost Grady Jarrett and Drew Dalman, but we've signed Devin Diablo from the Raiders. But I think it's very clear that we're going to be going for a defensive-minded players during the whole draft.
The draft.
So even during the combine, the coaches and head coaches, etc., they only interview defensive players. So that is the direction that we're going with. We've got great offensive players. So I don't think that's going to be a problem next season. But I just hope we don't turn into, say, Cincinnati Bengals, where we could put games to bed, but our defense let us down. We've already lost two great defenders, so I'm hoping there will be no more players leaving. I won't be surprised if there might be. Who knows? But bringing players in, that's our main focus now. Get the right defensive players in, and we should be competing for a playoff spot next season, 100%. It's frustrating like being a Miami Dolphins fan. It's frustrating as a Falcons fan. There's hope, it goes well, and it throws back right in your face. So.
Oh, the false hope, Guto. We're sold at the beginning of every single season, and then it all falls apart at the end of the season. But we're used to it now.
Yeah.
But there we are, and all quiet on fronts with Kyle Pitts. No trade requests. No,
nothing.
It doesn't seem that he's going to be going anywhere.
No. I think from what I read a few weeks ago, they're happy with Kyle Pitts. I think, which for me, happy days. I like Kyle Pitts. I think, with Michael Penix Jr. now being our starting quarterback, I think he'll get more of the ball. There was hope. There was some glimpse of him with Kirk Cousins, but obviously that whole situation is a mess as well. So it'll be interesting to see if Kirk Cousins leaves or goes. I don't think Pitts is going to go anywhere. Especially not this upcoming season. This could be a make or break season for him, but our quarterback situation, Michael Penix Jr. is our QB1. Kirk Cousins, I won't be surprised if he leaves or goes. There's been some rumours actually that the Cleveland Browns were interested in taking Kirk Cousins. So if they decide to go on a short term, 1 year contract or whatever, but as Falcons, like I said, we're in cap hell. So there's not a whole lot of movement in free agents that we can actually do. So we're just gonna depend on the draft. Yeah.
Well, there we are. I believe that we've covered not every single move, obviously, but I think we've covered the majority. We talked about the winners and the losers, and the main moves in terms of quarterbacks and wide receivers. The next domino to fall, obviously we've already mentioned it, Guto, is, are we going to see Aaron Rodgers joining a team? What's going to happen with Russell Wilson? That's really the only kind of two big moves that we're still waiting for at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll jump on a pod to explain and to tell you all about that whenever it does break, whenever the news breaks. Apart from that, free agency is still ongoing. We're on day 4. And then slowly now we're going to be building towards the draft in April. However, next week, Guto, we're very, very eager to get some former guests back on the pod, because I know one Johan Furnham is absolutely desperate to come back to talk about what on earth the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champions, have been doing. They have been purging their roster, especially on the defensive side. That's only one team that we haven't talked about this evening, but maybe we'll save that for a special episode next week. Yeah. We'll get Johan Furnham. He's all charged up. He's all ready to go. He said we could literally do a pod of the NFL Cymru podcast just on what on earth the Eagles have been doing over the last couple of days.
Yeah.
But there we are. But you know what, Guto, I trust them because they've got a good offense. They've got a good They've got a good GM, they've got a good owner who knows what they're doing, and I do trust them to come through. So there we are.
I agree. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
But we'll leave that. We'll leave that to the next episode. I believe Johan will have a lot to say about what's going on
Yes.
with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Like I said, we do hope that you've enjoyed hearing about all the free agent frenzy that's been going on over the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe. We're on Instagram, Spotify, and Guitar, like I said, has been keeping you on your toes. On X as well, NFL Cymru Pod. If you have any comment, if you're happy, if you think that your team is either a winner or a loser, please do let us know. If you think that we've missed out on any big moves or moves that we haven't even covered, that you think that is worth mentioning, give us a shout out, and we will definitely mention them on the next pod, like I said. Guto, diolch yn fawr iawn for your time. Pob lwc to Wales, pob lwc Cymru tomorrow against the old enemy England in the last game of the Six Nations. Massive game ahead at 4:45. However, we will be back with another episode with the end of free agency within the next couple of days.